See here. All right, looks like we are live. Hello and welcome to Black Rifle TV. I am your host, Jason, and I'm joined today with Tactical Pineapple. How's it going, man?
Hi. We're going pretty good over here.
So we're going to be talking about a lot of different things politically and legally that's been going on around the Second Amendment, ranging from Colorado, Nevada, and federally. So first, we're going to go into who Tactical Pineapple is. So why don't you introduce yourself, man?
I am just like anybody else. Basically, I've been hanging around the gun community for quite a while. 15 years ago, I was convicted of a felony. Worked my ass off to get rid of that felony. A year ago and some change now, I got a pardon from the felony and got my gun rights back, and been as big into Second Amendment as I can through the pandemic, especially, but even through the time when I was a restricted individual. And it's actually literally been 363 days now that I've been on YouTube doing various things. And I believe you found me through an interview with Coda Boy, which was probably my best showing, my biggest show.
That was hilarious.
It was interesting because we had planned to pre-record a show for Friday night on Wednesday night, and it just happened to be January 6th. So needless to say, there was a whole lot of stuff to talk about. And we ended up deciding, you know what, we're just going to do it live, handle it that way. And so I went live on a Wednesday for the first time. And now you found me. So
yeah.
I do different things on YouTube now too. I'm doing interviews, still go live every Friday night, and do moto vlog style content Monday, Wednesday, and today was the last Friday for a little while, but trying to upload multiple times a week and see how things go. So
you do like motorcycle content?
I do motorcycle content in the sense that I do a moto vlog. Basically, I talk politics, Second Amendment news, as well as some motorcycle stuff, gun stuff, just straight up while riding a motorcycle. So I get to have my fun, my freedom, and ride around in the open air, enjoying gorgeous weather, and I get to make content, which is fun for me.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. That's what's up. So I guess what made you want to get into YouTube?
Honestly, I started off doing YouTube because of a business that I was running. I was into apparel and stuff like that. The politics behind what I was doing kind of shut the business down. Not necessarily wanted to, but it literally was a victim of cancel culture and wasn't big enough not to fail, essentially. I had, pretty decent following at one point. People, customer base, this and that. And then they kept coming, and then my bank backed out. So I lost my payment processor. I got that fixed, got that back up. And then eventually they started going after the contractors who were manufacturing my stuff. And if you don't have anything coming in and nothing going out, you can't run a business. So pivoted, rebranded. I am Tactical Pineapple.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That kind of doesn't surprise me. That seems to be,
and it's probably not the worst. It was a lot of lessons learned. It did work out for me in the end. I didn't lose any money really. I'm down a little bit, but what I'm down, I learned a lot from. So,
yeah, that's. Man, it just seems like I can't say I'm surprised. I wish I could say, because it just seems like it's been rapidly accelerating ever since, January 6th, like you were talking about it. Just the accelerator just really just pedal to the metal. It's just gotten even worse. So
yeah. And it's cancel culture. It's a culture war in and of itself. But all in all, typically you say you can't be canceled if you don't want to be canceled, but I would say that I wasn't canceled. I chose to stop fighting because it was costing me more than it was making me at that point. So although, yes, I was affected by the canceling, I could have kept going. But there's a point where you're like, okay, now I'm starting to lose money and this is starting to take food out of my kids' mouth. So
you just can't go on doing that. Yeah, I completely understand that. That's you got to take care of your family, man. That's the important thing to do.
Yep.
So All right. So you're from Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, the
Okay.
great snow state.
So can you tell us about like what Wisconsin is like politically and gun rights like? And how did you find yourself in Wisconsin?
Well, I was born in Wisconsin. I was born actually in the North Woods of Wisconsin, moved down to the Milwaukee area when I was too young to voice my opinion about such, and grew up there, moved back to where I was born, and ended up coming back down this area, not quite to Milwaukee. Now I'm in the Fond du Lac area, the Fox Valley area. Just living my life. There's work here as opposed to up in the North Woods. There's not much work up there, so I do engineering for my day job, and I do this for my pretend job. So, as far as politics in Wisconsin, we are a very red state that somehow flipped blue. So, we kind of discussed it a little bit before.
Yeah, we can't go into that on here because of YouTube. Luchiski might pop in here. She might pull a cord.
Yep. We actually, our governor is currently Democrat. We probably won't see him return to that seat. Our House and our Senate in the state are fully Republican. So basically, it is the longest lame duck session in Wisconsin history, probably, with this governor. He's not going to accomplish very much. He's not going to get very much done, but it's kind of putting things behind. And excuse the dog. Apparently, he's tired.
Oh, no worries. And that's a good thing than Bernie Sanders' voice.
So, gun laws here are interesting. We are a shall issue concealed carry state. So pretty much if you meet the requirements set by the state, you can get a license. The requirements are not very large, not hard to get. Essentially, a hunter safety permit will get you your concealed carry permit if you have one. I'm a fan of more training necessarily than what they have, but I agree that you shouldn't have to have it in order to get your concealed carry, just because it is a barrier that could prevent somebody from protecting their own life. That being said, you don't need a license to open carry. The Wisconsin State Constitution allows open carry legally. You may, in some parts of the state, deal with police being called just because you're openly carrying a firearm, and people consider it a nuisance, essentially. But other than that, it is legal. So you can openly carry a pistol, a rifle, as long as you are 18 years of age or older, or accompanied by an adult, which goes into other things that are happening in our state right now. But we'll leave that to you if you want to talk about those. So
we can if you want. That's fine.
I mean, it's, we've got obviously the Kyle Rittenhouse situation going on in this state right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a lot of people get updates on it. Not a lot of people have seen what's going on. I have my personal opinion what the district attorneys are attempting to do.
Well, they're just trying to outlaw self-defense. I mean, it's obvious what they're trying to do.
This is actually a really interesting thing, because in the state of Wisconsin, I believe they know they're not going to get him. They're not going to get away from the self-defense claim.
They're just not going to be able to lynch him like they did Chauvin in Minneapolis.
Right. They're pushing it out. Number one, the prosecuting attorney's office literally outlined a defense in the contract, in the charging statements. Literally, basically saying that this was self-defense, but we have to prosecute this kid because if we don't, there's going to be massive unrest. So.
Oh, okay.
They've basically given him an out right from the beginning. Now they're dragging it out because what they're trying to do is that the prosecuting attorney, who is trying to lynch this kid, is attempting to circumvent the self-defense laws. So if they can find at any point some way that he was violating a law, self-defense goes out the window, because you cannot claim self-defense if you are actively committing a crime. So they started with he's too young to possess that firearm in the state of Wisconsin. Not true. He was with somebody who was over 18 in his party. legally he's able to carry that rifle openly in the state of Wisconsin. Saying breaking curfew. They've gone as far as saying he was breaking the curfew. Well, that's fine, but nobody else that was there that night was charged with breaking curfew. Therefore, it becomes not a crime because you weren't prosecuting anybody who was breaking that particular crime at that time. And then they just continue cycling through, and they're trying to say the rifle was a straw purchase. So they get his friend for purchasing it. Then it becomes an illegal rifle. Then you're in possession of an illegal firearm. And they're just doing everything they can to try and say that he was breaking some law so that he can't claim self-defense. No, they're not succeeding. So now they're just kind of pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off.
Well, I think they're trying to let the public, public opinion they're going to try to lynch him in the, public arena.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing. Meanwhile, all this dragging on is happening. This kid's life is literally on pause. And I'm pissed off about it from a standpoint of somebody taught him how to be civically minded. Somebody taught him as an adult. Where was that adult? Why did he have to be the one out there doing it? We put our kids out there enough. He shouldn't have been the one out there. He had a right to be. He had a right to defend himself. He did a good job of it.
It just wasn't a good idea for him to be out there doing it. It's
right.
It was just not a win-win. It was just a lose-lose situation.
Exactly. And the thing that drives me even more nuts about the whole situation is the one guy who's still alive, who just took the shot to the arm, was a felon in possession of a firearm at the time, and he hasn't even been brought on a charge. So,
Which one was he? The pedophile, or was that the other one?
No, the one who got it in the head first was the pedophile.
Okay.
The second one who died was actually multiple convicted abuser. And then the third one is a felon who's been charged with other things in the past, who happened to be pointing and aiming a Glock at him and literally said in an interview, "I wish I'd have just shot him." Like, you literally admitted to being in possession of the fucking firearm, and here you are not even being charged with that. So I guess as long as you vote blue, you don't have to follow the laws.
Well, I mean, I don't know. How well do you remember the Chaz Chop situation up here by Seattle? How much of that do you remember?
Oh, I remember quite a bit of it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still kind of going on back. It's just not necessarily the Chop area.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if there's this guy, a radio host. I think he subbed for Rush Limbaugh when he used to be, obviously when he was still alive. He's named Todd Herman. He always calls it the separate state of Seattle and the separate state of Washington, because it's pretty much, they do whatever they want. I mean,
right.
It's just bizarre. I mean, just the whole thing with Chaz Chop. I mean, I can't tell you. Do you remember when they were taking out the rifles out of the Tesla?
Yep.
I can't tell you how many state laws that could have easily brought them up on. I mean, They just let them get away with it. So It's just, the whole thing was just bizarre. And it's just, they had the mayor on there saying, "Oh, it's just the city of love, or the summer of love," or it's just absolutely bizarre.
How many people died? How many people were attacked? And how many?
I think 7 black people got shot. Right. So then they were like kids. Yeah, and it was just constantly shootings constantly up there. It was just nuts. There wasn't a lot of reporting on it. It was sort of, you had to go to Andy No to find out what was going on.
Right.
Of course, I'm sure you remember the situation. I don't know if you remember the situation with Yankee Marshall and Mr. Gunzinger. I'm sure we won't get into that. We don't want to start turf war right now. But he actually went.
I have my opinions of the Marshall himself, and not good.
Yeah. I'm not. He lives in my state. I think he's in a neighboring county where I'm at. He's in Skamania County, I think. And he's neighboring next to me. Yeah, but
he's one of those. I put him in the same camp as the more recent individuals in catching fire in like Evan Hafer, gun owners who aren't exactly 2A advocates. I
don't know. I don't like him, honestly. he's not that he's a leftist. Look, people can be leftist. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it's just I get the attitude he's just grifting. This is just a big grift for him, and it's just it's this whole thing where he went. I guess I can't really say I'm really into Mr. Guns and Gear. I don't have an opinion on him, but just the way he went after him, it was just like he didn't have any evidence for that. So it was just I don't know. And he actually, go ahead.
It was just a whole debacle that shouldn't have never happened, and it's just
he's an attention whore. That's what that was.
Even if you had the information on it, is it something that you do publicly?
Like, well, he was just attention getting. This is what he does.
Research ahead of time before you go and attack somebody. That's like going up against somebody who, let's say Matt Best, huge name, everybody knows him, and saying that his military career was fake. You don't have any information to say that it wasn't, number one, and there's a pretty extensive collection of information that says it was true. Like, he did it. Like, there's no reason to go after that and say it. It's just, it's dumb, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what that was. That sort of fizzled out real fast. I think it was just attention. That's just what he does. So.
Well, I think his viewership was dropping, and he needed some drama.
Oh, well, he dropped one. I was subscribed to him. I just dropped him real fast after that. I just said, I don't need to get behind this.
Yep.
But he actually was up. I don't know if you remember this. He was actually in the Chaz area. He went up there. So.
And got punched in the face because it was.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw that. That's just. He was up there. He actually was sitting there saying it was okay what they were doing. I was just like, you.
I'm on your side.
I'm on your side. Well, that's enough about Mr. Yankee.
Yeah. Yep.
I guess let's get into the topics we wanted to talk about. So I guess the different topics, if you don't mind, I'm just going to roll through them real fast for my viewers here. So we'll talk about the Colorado preemption that has been repealed a couple months ago, I believe. The Georgia citizen arrest law that was repealed. The Nevada 80% lower ban, the ATF. I guess the current situation with the 80% lowers and pistol braces with the ATF. I guess that was the New York State Pistol Association, Supreme Court cases, the Hawaii concealed carry cases, the California AKAR ban laws, the Shrine Court case around that, and also the Supreme Court gun confiscation ruling. And I guess most recently, the situation going on in New York with the nuisance laws. So I guess we could just start off with the, let's see here, the Colorado preemption. I actually got an article, if you don't mind. I was going to go ahead and show that here. Let's see here. If I can find that. This is in Colorado. You can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
All right, let's go ahead and zoom in on that. So this is in Colorado. The Senate Democrats pass preemption bill that allows local governments to pass stricter gun laws. The Senate Democrats in Colorado Tuesday, not this Tuesday, but a while ago, over the strong objections from the Republican minority, passed Senate Bill 256. A bill that lifts the state's ban on local governments passing stricter gun laws than those that exist in the state law. The final vote was along party lines, 19-15, with one Democrat absent. Senate Majority Leader Steve Fensberg, Democrat of Boulder, said he'd start working on the bill before the March 22nd King Supers shooting in South Boulder, and just after a Boulder District Court judge tossed a local ordinance banning assault. I don't like saying that term, assault weapons, but we'll go with it. Within the city limits. I think the judge got it right based off of the 2003 state preemption law, he told the Senate Monday. I don't think it's right that some cities can do this and some can't, he said, referring to a similar Denver ordinance banning firearms that was upheld by the state Supreme Court. Due to being an issue of mixed state and local concern, gun plays a different roles in everyone's life, he acknowledged. For some, guns are a normal part of life, while others may not have seen one. Okay. What are you doing in Colorado then? If you haven't seen a gun. Okay. But we also know the impacts of guns, the violence that result from them is different in every community as well, knowing that the vast majority of suicides come from guns. Okay. It's appropriate to allow the local body closest to their citizens to pass ordinances that they believe are best for their community. Co-sponsor, oops, Dominic Moreno, Democrat of Commerce City, pointed out the bill is permissive. It allows local governments to establish local control, but is not a mandate. Throughout the past few years, the General Assembly has passed legislation to give autonomy to local governments, like local control of minimum wage. Local governments already restrict open carry of firearms, he pointed out, and some local governments have already declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries, most recently in response to the local red flag law. The bill was amended in a Monday debate to grant those with concealed carry permits an exemption from criminal penalties, based on whether that person should have known about the local ordinance that bans firearms in general or concealed weapons. I think we get the idea. I don't want to, obviously talk about, what happened in Boulder and, how they're so self-righteous and all that.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I actually don't oppose repealing preemption laws. Big thing about preemption laws is that it typically restricts the power of local governments, and local government is supposed to be just that, our local government. It allows local areas to have representative laws in that area that represent the people's values of that area. The problem is when it comes down to where it's using that local law to kind of push an initiative on other people that didn't necessarily vote for it. With these individuals doing something like this, all they did was repeal the preemption law to allow them to circumvent the court case that actually repealed an assault weapons ban in Boulder, Colorado. So in 2018, Boulder enacted this ban on black rifles, and
after the Parkland shooting,
right? And it was immediately struck down by a county district judge. So I shouldn't say immediately. It took a while in the courts. They did all that stuff, and as courts always take forever. It was earlier this year, but the process started almost immediately to strike it down because of the preemption laws. Now, as soon as they lost in court, they threw a temper tantrum, went to the state house and put this bill forward and said, let's get rid of preemption laws. They did it, and now they're making it legal for the local government to now enact stricter gun laws. So it's kind of a way to circumvent a court ruling that they didn't like, which is probably
yeah. Well, I generally agree with you on that. The local control is better, but the problem with that is just that they've weaponized it to where, it's gonna be like a patchwork of this city can do this, that city can do that, and
I'm torn because technically that's how it should be. This whole country was founded on patchwork government. So that's kind of like the jury of your peers. Your peers were individuals who share your values, who share your economic status. It was supposed to be that way. So if you're tried in court, you're tried by individuals who hold the same values you do. So that way there's an understanding of why you may have done something that you did, especially in something like a self-defense case. I'll say you'd get charged with self-defense, or charged with something that you want to claim self-defense on in an area that's heavily against, whatever you did. Say you basically just fought your way out of something. You're not even using a gun. But the area is heavily against any form of material violence. You're going to automatically be charged regardless because the people in that area hold values that are different than yours. And that's why the jury of your peers is important.
Yeah. Okay. It's an interesting way to look at it. That's fine. Makes sense.
I do agree. It sucks when they weaponize it, and it is kind of what it is. But if you look at it from the other standpoint, all the rural counties in those areas can also enact based on.
Well, actually, no, they can't.
Well, they can go ahead and do Second Amendment sanctuaries. They can.
Well, I know, but I'd say the law actually prohibits that. They can't do that.
Well, yeah, there's does, and that's the thing is they need to figure out. We need to figure out how to make it fair on both sides, and that's that's where we struggle. Democrats have taken the state, so it's the same as everywhere else. We're gonna fight it on every single level, but we have to start locally to take over the bigger areas.
Yeah. All right. Makes sense. I like that. I like that. Very good explanation. I like that. So I guess there anything else you want to add to it, or would you like to move on to the?
We can go on, or if you want to stick on it a little bit more. I mean, the big issue here is like this assault weapon ban. Obviously, back to like New York and Chicago and all these places, it doesn't do what they want it to do. So it's just, it's just about taking the guns away from the people.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you saw that Biden was already saying he wants to ban handguns. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. Yeah, I will be honest. Hey, at least Biden's being real. The crime leaders and the thing that actually is used in crime more often than not is a handgun. So you want to take away the guns that are causing the problem? It's technically the handguns.
Yeah.
However, it's illegal handguns that were obtained illegally in the first place. So
yeah, they don't go and get background checks.
Exactly. Making it harder for law-abiding citizens to get guns isn't the answer.
Well, a lot of this is just, it's just control. They just want more control. They want to pack us in like sardines in these cities. They don't like this whole thing where we can live in the suburbs or out in the country. They just want us, on our little pods in the cities with our little drones, our little buses and everything.
It's hard to control people when they're spread out amongst many acres.
Yeah.
It's really easy to control them when you can put a fence around an entire area.
Yeah, don't even get me started about the whole fencing off the Capitol and everythup.
But walls don't work. Come on.
Yeah, sure. Walls don't work. What's the first thing they do at the Capitol? They put up a fence. They have their own security force. I mean, they had the National Guard there, who, by the way, didn't have magazines in their rifles. So what was going on with that? So
they weren't allowed to have them because they figured they weren't vetted yet.
Absolutely bizarre. I guess. I think that's all we can really say about the whole thing in Colorado. It's. The state's pretty much gone. I don't see the state ever going red again. It's just going to get worse. I mean,
I don't know. Like, here's the thing about the whole state's never going red again. We have a generation that's coming up behind the Gen Zers who are more conservative than probably any generation back to World War II, just because they've lived in such an authoritarian state. They understand and they want their freedoms back.
Yeah.
They may have, I don't want to go conspiracy theory, but they stopped teaching kids cursive. Why'd they stop teaching cursive? If you want to stop somebody from understanding their rights, take away the language that's written in.
That makes sense. Yeah. I like that. And I guess, I don't know if you saw this in the Capitol Police, they want separate offices in Florida now and California. So that's, I don't know, really I think you know why they're doing that, right? Is because the Capitol Police, they don't report like to the Congress. They report to Schumer, the Turtle, and then Stretch Face Pelosi. So it's a secret police force pretty much. So So I guess that's really all I could say about Colorado. I guess if there's any news updates from that. I mean, I heard Boulder because I follow their gun rights politics, their Reddit. I guess Boulder was pushing something. I haven't heard much what's going on in that.
They reintroduced an assault weapons ban already, and they're figuring it'll go through. But as far as already being done, I don't believe it is. So,
yeah, let me check that real fast. But Colorado guns Reddit.
It's basically the same thing that they've been dealing with anyways. So most of the residents there are already in compliance or secretly not in compliance.
So I guess they already have one. Did Boulder already enact it?
Well, they had one in 2018.
Yeah.
It was restricted then by the federal or by the courts. And then they did this preemption law. So they were planning to replace or put it back in place. I don't know if they did or not, but
I don't think so. I think
it goes back to the please be aware of your local laws.
Yeah. I think when I'm reading Boulder, they held a meeting, but that was like 16 days ago. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Secret meetings.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this one was secret though. I think this one they actually told people about it. So
yeah, I've actually seen some interesting ones too, where they've come out and told people of the meetings, and then they put COVID restrictions on the doors.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Meeting.
Yeah. I think the city next. I think there's a city behind me that did something like that. They pull a fast one. Everyone doing that. So this whole COVID restrictions things is just BS. It's just.
Yeah.
I guess I'll blabber on a little bit more. Then we'll get back on track. But my college actually. So I went and ordered a textbook online. I couldn't drive out to the library and pick it up. They made me get an appointment like 2 weeks after to get the book, and they made it to where if I didn't show up on time, like just right specific time, I wasn't going to get the book. So I have no idea. The whole thing is just it's
ridiculous.
Yeah. So we can't get too much into COVID because this is
I know.
This is Wojcicki land. So
I get it.
Yeah.
Information tag is a bad one.
Yes, sir.
Even if you talk about stuff that's true.
Yeah. So I guess next we'll get started on the Georgia repeal of the Georgia Citizens Arrest Law. This is obviously after the Ahmaud Arbery. I got an article here I was going to read.
Sure.
Let's see here. Pull this up here. Let's see here. Overhaul of the Citizens Arrest Law heads to the Georgia governor's desk. This is Brian Kemp. Georgia is on track to becoming the first state to repeal a Civil War era law that allows most residents to arrest someone they suspected of committing a crime. The House voted 169-0 on Wednesday to send a House Bill 179 to Governor Brian Kemp's desk. The Senate voted 51-1 to approve the measure earlier this week. The Citizen Arrest Law became reviewed scrutiny last year after he was cited by a prosecutor to justify not charging three men involved in the shooting of death of Ahmaud Arbery. Of course, they had to sit there and tell us what color they are. Like that really matters. And then Kemp announced that in January that it was on his top priorities to overhaul the law, which has been on the books since 1863 to allow white Georgians to capture slaves who were fleeing to fight in the Union Army. Later, the law was used in the early 1900s to justify the lynching of black people without repercussions. Quote, an overhaul of the Georgia Citizens Arrest Law statute strikes a critical balance, allowing Georgians to protect themselves and their families, while also repealing the Civil War-era language in the laws that is ripe for abuse, Kim said. I look forward to signing it into law as we continue to send a clear message that the Peach State will not tolerate sinister acts of vigilantism in our communities. Sorry, I butchered that. What the bill does, it repeals the citizens arrest statute from state law while still allowing employees at businesses who's conducting businesses on someone else's property, security officers, private investigators, and inspectors on truck scales to detain someone they believe has committed a crime. The bill also allows law enforcement to make arrests outside their jurisdictions. The enactment of the law will make Georgia the first state to remove a citizen's arrest statute from its books. All 50 states have a version of the law in place. Lawmakers in South Carolina and New York have introduced a similar measure. I think we pretty much get the idea. They go into what happened with Ahmaud Arbery. So
right, I think the big thing here is that it's overhauling it to kind of prevent vigilantism. I understand somewhat. Vigilantism is a problem. I guess the important thing here is at least it doesn't actually change Georgia's stand your ground law. It doesn't change the defense of self or property statutes. So that is a positive note on the whole thing. It's also actually added some provisions for shopkeepers where, unlike in California right now, where everybody's able to just walk in and grab and go. In Georgia, a shopkeeper can detain an individual long enough for law enforcement to show up, and they can detain them for up to an hour prior to them having to let them go. So that gives an individual enough time to perform a significant enough investigation of their own before getting the police involved if necessary upon detainment. Interestingly, it also still allows for private security officers and private investigators to detain individuals while conducting an investigation. So, um, technically, private security officers could be hired and used as vigilantes if necessary under this law. So it's kind of weird that they're trying to prevent something, but at the same time, they've basically opened up and allowed it. So,
well, I suspect the security company's probably gotten one of the politicians' ears and allowed that.
right. So that's a very interesting thing to see in there. My biggest concern with this whole thing is actually the law enforcement officers' right to perform arrests outside of their respective jurisdictions. So it does limit it to 3 circumstances. So number 1, when an offense is committed in the officer's presence or immediate knowledge. When the officer is in hot pursuit of an offender or offender leaves the officer's jurisdiction while attempting to escape. This is actually a good thing, I believe. There was a well-known case where an individual's dog was shot. You may know of it. And he chased the suspects through 2 counties before the cops were actually able to catch up to him, basically. But the cops were able to arrest and detain the individuals who shot his dog. But officers had to break pursuit when the county changed. So, especially when you get into rural areas and how the maps are run, sometimes you could run through 3 counties in 10 minutes. So you could, if you do it right, you could legitimately break contact with 3 different police enforcement agencies before getting to a spot where essentially nobody's chasing you and you can just walk away. So
yeah, that makes sense.
So I actually am okay with that one. And then when the officer is assisting law enforcement officers of another jurisdiction, that's kind of goes without saying. Most places have that collaboration potential. I just don't like when the offense is committed in the officer's presence or immediate knowledge. The or immediate knowledge, to me, is problematic because, I know he committed the crime, so I'm going to arrest him. Well, is it a crime in that area? How well do you know the laws of that local jurisdiction? Preemption laws now, being what they are in a lot of states, Georgia does have several areas and pockets where laws are different here than they are here. They've got, think dry counties. The Bible Belt has several counties that are dry. Oh, well, he had alcohol and I know it, so I'm going to arrest him. Well, yeah, it's a dumb law. It still exists and people still prosecute for it. So it could be problematic in that sense. But
yeah. So overall, how do you think it will affect, stand your ground, self-defense? Do you think that this will make a difference?
I'm going to be honest. It literally says it does not affect, and it cannot affect right in the bill, right from Governor Kemp. The citizens stand your ground laws. It doesn't affect personal defense statutes or property statutes. So you have a right to defend yourself and your property in Georgia, and it literally says you can't. It doesn't stop that. The issue is, and this is very similar to pretty much any other state in the union. You can't pursue a subject off of your property when they're fleeing, and then act upon, in any way and claim it as self-defense or defensive property. With the whole Ahmaud Arbery case, that's what happened. They literally, number one, from what I understand, and it maybe just blurred with some of the other things that were happening at the time, because a lot of similar situations were going on. It wasn't even the individual's house. It was just his neighborhood. And he was chasing the suspect off what he thought was a robbery in progress that wasn't his property. It wasn't anything to do with him personally. And they chose to chase the subject, and it ended in the kid's death. So
yeah,
regardless of the situation, technically, none of the laws that are still protected by this are even able to be used in that situation, because the aggression by the individuals going after Ahmaud Arbery actually led to a situation of self-defense, possibly. So again, it's sort of a commission of a crime, self-defense situation. So I get the whole this is problematic as it is. I'm on the fence with the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't like giving anybody power that they don't need, and I think this does that in some situations. But it also actually adds some provisions that I'm okay with. The shopkeeper privilege, that's new. That didn't exist under Georgia law, so that's unique. The restaurant owners being able to prevent people from dine and dashing, that's been there.
You've dealt with that.
Yeah, it is whatever. But provision allowing weight inspectors to detain individuals when needed in the course of their duties. I don't know what it.
Well, this is just one of these things that get snuck in there in the fine text. So.
Like okay, so if a truck driver is driving through a weigh station, and an individual goes to take off, that's already a commission of a crime because you're attempting to flee an officer because weight inspectors are officers. I don't think that needed to be there. It's just so.
Well, I think this is just you get these groups. They get to they talk to politicians. Hey, can you sneak that in there? Yeah, I see that bill over there. Can you sneak that in there? Sneak some language in there. So it's just like the whole thing where it's I'm a little bill. The whole cartoon thing. Yeah. In reality, he walks out. He's big and fat and bloated because he's been stuffed with language.
A big thing that's in here is in section 3 of it. It literally says though. There is a provision that includes stating that nothing in this code section shall be construed to limit or to alter any defense under Georgia's defense of self or property statutes or Georgia's stand your ground statutes. So it does say flat out that this does not prevent any of that, which in my opinion is good. So,
yeah. Okay. Makes sense. All right. I guess anything else you want to add to it, or do you want to move on to the next topic?
We're good. I mean, that's pretty much it. It does, I guess this too, I just saw section 7 of that bill too. It provides civil immunity for retail businesses or restaurant owners who properly detain individuals under the newly created code. So they can't be charged with false arrest or false imprisonment as long as what they're detainment for is found reasonable. So I think that's great. It's basically kind of counteracting some of the litigious nature of individuals these days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, let's go and move on to the next topic here. This is out of Nevada. Let's see. Gun rights groups sue over law banning quote-unquote ghost guns. Carson City, Nevada. Second Amendment rights group has filed a lawsuit challenging Nevada's recently passed law that bans the sale, use, ownership of untraceable quote-unquote ghost guns. Filed in a district federal court in Reno Thursday by Firearms Policy Coalition. Big shout out, by the way. Love those guys. And Nevada residents Roger Palm, Chad Moxley. The lawsuit targets Nevada Assembly Bill 286, claiming the law prevents people from exercising their Second Amendment rights because it prohibits them from owning self-manufactured firearms. Bill 286 was signed into law by Democrat Steve Sisolak. Let me fix that real fast. Where was it? On Monday, after passing a law on the legislature on party line votes in both chambers, the new law specifically bans the sale and possession of firearms, frames, receivers sold as kits or made with 3D printers. In their unfinished state, they are not classified as weapons and do not require serial numbers and therefore cannot be traced. Advocates for tighter gun control cite the public safety threat for people who can buy kits through. They may be legally prohibited from owning firearms. The gun rights groups argue that being able to build your own firearms is a constitutional right, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. It talks about what the Firearms Policy Coalition. The lawsuit names Sisolak Attorney General Aaron Ford, Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolson, and Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo as defendants, among other states and county officials. 8 states, including California and Washington, have enacted laws that at least partially address issues with untraceable guns, according to, we're not going to go into that. Pro-gun control Giffords. Yeah, I'm not going to even comment on her.
She has a reason. I mean, Out of everybody in politics, she is the one person I will say actually has a viable reason to want to go after guns. I mean, to be fair.
Well, though I think it's her husband's using her. She sort of gets, pushed around by him. But I'm not gonna.
Yep. Nope. We're good.
Not gonna pick on her.
Yep.
Recently, state and local governments have sued manufacturers of ghost gun kits, including one company in Nevada that has drawn scrutiny from law enforcement. Blah blah blah. Talks about Los Angeles is being sued. Polymer 80 is being sued by Los Angeles. Yeah, I think we get the idea.
Yeah.
So
basically, yeah, it's an attack on the completion of it, and it's unfounded in most respects. So, I think the actual FBI database for guns that are unserialized being used in crime, obviously it's fairly high. But what they don't actually say is that those guns are unserialized because individuals had filed them off. In only 3 instances in the last 5 years that I've been able to find, an individual used a polymer 80 pistol in the commission of a crime. So, for the most part, individuals who are looking to get their hands on guns, yes, they could create these. They could make them. But my argument here is that individual who was restricted anyways and managed to get it was going to get their gun somehow. They chose to go this route. And all they're doing is really restricting the rights of individuals who aren't under that banner.
Did you were talking to me earlier how somebody who lives there who did not even know how it was passed? Can you go into like how this thing was passed?
Yeah, so I don't know fully how it all went through. But yeah, I know an individual who is literally in there in the Las Vegas, Laughlin area. Big pro Second Amendment guy. All over the place as far as shooting and following Second Amendment news. And woke up one morning and all of a sudden polymer 80 guns are illegal. Like, what? Like, he didn't even know this was happening. And it was literally just kind of burning the midnight oil, pushed through and passed type of situation. And there was no comment section. There was no open, come voice your opinion on it. It was Democratic politicians push something through in the middle of the night. And
it was just a Las Vegas political machine.
Yep. So, and interestingly enough, Las Vegas is literally one of the fully automatic firearms capitals of the United States. There are probably more fully automatic firearms in the city of Los Angeles than there are in probably most of Texas, because of all the different fully automatic, machine gun Vegas type shops that are out there. So the life of the SOT in Vegas is real. And here we are talking about 80% lowers that accommodate for less than 1% of all gun crime nationally. And for the most part, if you're a restricted person, like I said, I've been a restricted person. If I wanted to commit a crime with a gun, there are so many easier ways to get a gun that it's ridiculous. Like, to say that somebody's going to order a P80 kit, wait the 2 weeks for it to show up, sit there, do the work on it, mill it out, grind it, break it in, because it takes 100 rounds for that gun at least to even be semi-reliable. And then you're going to use that gun in the commission of a crime.
Well, I mean, these are just saying, this is the logic these people have in their heads. Don't even get me started with the whole 3D printing thing.
Yeah. Well, I 3D print all the time. I don't 3D print gun parts, but I can promise you that I'm not going to use a 3D printed anything for a gun. Like, I've watched on too many occasions the layers of a 3D print separate very, very easily.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess, how successful do you think the lawsuit's going to be when they're suing Nevada?
Well, I think it'll end up similarly to like California. The lawsuits are going to put a halt to the ban. Number one, there's a major manufacturer in the state of Nevada for polymer 80s. I believe polymer 80, actually P80 themselves are in Nevada. So it's really basically just an organized attack on the company. And I think it will be fairly successful in halting it. Hopefully the courts there will overturn it, but the courts in Nevada haven't always been good to the Second Amendment. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's been a lot of Californians carpetbagging out there, so it's it's crying. I just don't like how they sort of just snuck it in there real fast. That's
and it was literally like, I think they, after looking at it when he brought it up, he said something about it literally was introduced like 2 days before it was voted through, which, if you know anything about the government process, that's unheard of.
Well, that's what Nancy Pelosi is doing right now. I don't know if you know this in the House. They're not doing hearings or you can come into Capitol and comment. They're not doing any of that stuff. It's just, it's being written and hatched out of Pelosi's office straight to the floor vote. And that's the end of it. That's the end of the House for you. Yep. So this is just the Democrat machine. This is how they run government. They run it with an iron fist. This is just... Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't want to go into this, communism and this and that. It's just political machine. It's just regime. That's what this is, a regime. So I guess that's all. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or
as of right now, I think it's kind of in its premature status, I guess. They passed it. They're technically illegal. Nobody's turning them in. That's, this is the thing though. You don't know about them. The only thing that is going against them is that they were raided by the ATF and all their rolls were taken. So if you purchased it with a credit card, they know you got it. So as much as
we don't know why they were raided.
Yeah, it comes down to they were selling a kit that was basically a complete firearm once it was processed. And they said, the ATF said that that's a no-no, which it's a gray area, yes, but it's no different than if you bought the lower and then all the parts to complete it. It's just a package that came to your door with everything in one box. The whole deal there, and I believe they'll win, is the argument that a conglomeration of parts does not make a firearm. So...
yeah, well, they're trying to make it into one.
Right. Well, they don't even know how to serialize anything. They don't know what's the lower, what's the upper today. So there's that.
Yeah, it's a mess. And of course, we all have to abide by it. So I guess, could you go into the whole what's going on with the ATF, the 80% lowers and the pistol braces? Would you mind going into that?
Yeah. So as far as like the ATF's concerned with 80% lowers, they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to move the goalpost essentially on what is a firearm. And they're trying to eliminate the ability for an individual to buy technically an 80% lower. So they determined that a lower is not a lower until it is 80.001% complete. After 80%, which most of these are finished technically to about 78% as a safety factor. After 80%, they're considered a lower, a firearm, and good to go. Otherwise, they're just a chunk of plastic that's machined pretty close to spec. And the ATF is trying to eliminate that definition as reality and say that you can't own or possess a piece of plastic. Therein lies the problem. It's just a piece of plastic until it has more than 80% complete by that point. So their definition, I don't think it'll hold. I don't think it'll end up going through. But this gets into the whole bureaucratic state of affairs we're in right now, where unelected officials are determining gun laws and gun legislation. It's not legal. They can't do that. There's nothing about their job that says they can do that. But again, it comes down to the people allowing it. People only have as much power as you're willing to grant them. And we've granted them a lot of power over the years, and nobody's taking it back. So nobody's going to willingly give that up. We just need to do what we can to fight them on it. And the good thing is a good portion of Congress and Senate have pushed back on them and said back off of it. I don't think it's enough. They make a big deal out of it. 54 Congress people went after the ATF and said, don't do this. There's 256 people in Congress. That ain't shit. Come on, guys. Let's step the game up a little bit here. We're getting excited about a third of an individual group. So, in some cases less. As far as the pistol braces themselves, I think they're creating a Schrodinger's cat situation for themselves. So the pistol brace was passed as a legality to allow for individuals who were otherwise disabled or handicapped in being able to shoot a long rifle as a pistol or larger pistol. If used as a shouldering device is kind of the gray area. That's always been the gray area. Like, can you shoulder it? Can you not shoulder it? What is legal here? What is legal there? Technically, the firearm is considered a pistol. It does not technically have a shouldering device, but you go ahead and put it against your shoulder. And now, is it a short barrel rifle? They're just trying to move the ball again with that. It's similar situation. To get into, some of the things with like Q and some of their rifles and how the length of pull and how it's measured. It's all just kind of playing a game with it. And that's what the ATF does, is they just move things around a little bit to try and make it so it's harder for people to get whatever. And they're doing it under the directive of the current regime because they know they can't pass legislation that'll actually do anything for it. So giving the power to the ATF, or supposedly giving the power to the ATF, is what they're trying to do. I would argue that it is in common use. So the whole common use clause when it comes to firearms would be taking effect. And that comes where any gun that is in common use cannot technically be put into like the NFA situation. So they've allowed it for a long enough period of time that so many of them already exist in the market. You would essentially be creating felons of 70% of gun owners overnight. So my argument here is to the ATF, or my statement, I guess, here to the ATF is, if you make those illegal, there's no difference between that and a stock. I'm putting a stock on my pistol. Period. Like, a pistol brace is not functional. It is not a comfortable thing. It doesn't really help you shoot the gun better. It's just, it allows you to have a shorter rifle, which the whole argument of it makes it concealable is ridiculous. I don't know anybody who's running around with a 16-inch long pistol that they want to conceal. Like, most people are having a hard time concealing a Glock 17. You think they're going to conceal an AR variant pistol? So
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's just,
yeah. So they argue,
just scary.
The whole argument is just saying that it makes it easier to use in mass casualty events or whatever. Yeah, it does. But my argument again is, the person who's committing that crime, do you think they really give a rat's ass whether it's a pistol brace or it's a stock? I can purchase an upper in 10.5 inches and keep it in my safe and never put it on a gun, and I'm perfectly legal. I put that upper on, and now it becomes a short barrel rifle. It becomes an NFA item. It becomes an illegality. If I'm going to commit a crime, who cares? Right? You're already going to commit murder. What do you care about a gun crime? It's stupid, their argument for it. It's just, personally, I think the NFA needs to be repealed. I think the ATF needs to be gone. The FBI does more for policing of all of those things than the ATF ever did. The ATF is underfunded. They haven't really done anything of value ever. And
if you consider Waco value.
Well, Chipman does. Totally different situation there, but hey.
I guess, do you want to get into him too while we're at it?
There's not much to get into. The guy is a clown. he doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground, and then his absolute disdain for gun owners is ridiculous.
Childish.
Well, if you're a new gun owner, you should take that pistol. The best thing you can do is take that pistol, lock it up in a safe, unload it, and hide it behind all those cans that you're storing in your basement, and only pull it out for when the zombie apocalypse comes. What? Okay, so basically you're just saying everybody's just conspiracy nuts and blah, 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 blah. People fail to realize that the majority of new gun owners in 2020, 2021 are of Democratic individuals, people who vote to the blue. So if 60% of all new gun owners are that, and you're trying to placate to a base to get yourself voted in, what you just said about themselves is ridiculous. So
I don't know. He's just such a reprobate. I mean, this you don't have to get into Waco. He's just such a reprobate. I mean, my goodness, they couldn't find someone else. I mean, I don't know if you saw their nominee with the BLM land. I mean, she's in whole other beauty. I mean,
yeah. It's the whole nomination process at this point is just kind of like throw out whatever wacko you can and just see what sticks. It's almost like they're trying to tie up committees in denying individuals so that they don't have to do anything.
Yeah. I guess, what do you think the chances are of him going through?
I think the chances are probably 48% to 52%. It's right on the line whether he goes through or not. And I think other individuals see that. That's why they've already actually put out impeachment papers for him. So they've already released impeachment documentation to eliminate Chipman as the director of the ATF should he get nominated. So,
yeah.
Or he has already been nominated, but should he get pushed through?
Okay. So you think it's going to go through?
I don't know. I think enough people are going to say no to it. I really do, but there's always that 4% variable. Like, you just don't know who's going to come to who in the middle of the night and offer him a big paycheck and then put him through. I mean, we've seen individuals, we've seen rhinos flip on certain situations for no apparent reason in the middle of the night. So our government today is almost impossible to predict, I would say. You never know what's going to happen. We've looked at things and said, oh, it's going to go through, or it's not going to go through, and it doesn't go anywhere. So it's kind of it's a crapshoot either way. I'll never say I'm comfortable either way. It is what it is. So.
No worries. I'm not going to put your, I'm not going to make you vote on yes or no on that. So we'll just leave it at that.
I would vote no.
Well, I know. I'm not going to make you have to predict it. I don't want to put you.
I don't believe he'll get pushed through, but like I said, there's that little chance where it's like,
yeah, this is DC, like one of the most corrupt cities in the world. So you never know what to think. So
there's always the opportunity for somebody to pay somebody off.
Yeah, it's not I never want to step foot in that place. It's just you get bad. I know people who've been there and they say they get bad vibes out that place.
Don't worry, you can't anymore. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess anything else you want to add to that, or do you want to move on to the next?
Move on.
I guess can we go into the New York State Rifle Pistol Association?
Yeah.
I guess they had some cases. Could you go into those?
Yeah. So, it's been over 10 years now since the Supreme Court said that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual's right to keep and bear arms. And New York is one of the hardest places in the country to actually express your Second Amendment rights. They are a may issue state when it comes to concealed carry permits. You actually, even to buy a pistol, I have a friend who lives and works in New York. It's ridiculous the amount of work that you have to go through in order to actually get a gun there. You have to file a piece of paperwork probably 2 weeks ahead of you purchasing a firearm. You have to go to your local sheriff's office, get fingerprinted, go through an interview process, and then they might give you the ability to purchase the firearm. once they give you the right to purchase the firearm, if they give it to you, you can then go to the firearm place and pick up your gun. You have to purchase the gun first because you have to have the serial number as a part of it. So it's absolutely insane the amount of work that goes into it. And because of that, a lot of individuals don't buy guns. So, or individuals, here's the other thing. The whole circumventing of New York law is problematic too. So now you have all these individuals who just, all it takes is to set up a P.O. box in New Jersey to establish residence. So now you go there, you establish residence, you can purchase the gun in New Jersey. But if you get caught transporting it anywhere other than from home to a range, you get federal firearm charges or state firearm charges, which is absolutely ridiculous. So you can have it in your home if you live in New Jersey, but you can't transport it anywhere other than to a range. Technically, the way the law reads, you can't bring the gun home because you can only be carrying it to a range. So it's I don't think anybody's been charged with taking a firearm home from the range, but the way the law reads, they could technically be prosecuted for carrying that gun home to a range, from a range.
Do you think it was just one of these things they sort of just wrote and never logically thought about it?
Yeah, it is. It's similar to, in the state of Wisconsin, we have a law where it's illegal for restaurants to serve margarine. Because it literally says restaurants are only legally allowed to serve butter. So technically, they cannot give you margarine in a restaurant. It's against the law.
Interesting.
Never come to Wisconsin and expect to get margarine in a restaurant. So,
has it never been repealed yet?
No, it's just one of those stupid laws that just exists and nobody cares about. But it's a technicality.
So I guess if you get one of those prosecutors, they can charge you with that.
Yeah. And the whole lawsuit is just basically saying that a right delayed is a right denied, and it comes a lot from, I believe, the individuals are kind of approaching it from a women's self-defense standpoint, which helps a little bit. I think it's actually the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, if I'm correct. Yeah, there's a threshold, and it's so ridiculous. I just looking at some notes here. The Second Circuit, actually, the Second Circuit of the Supreme Court in New York, the state Supreme Court, has granted the licensing regime essentially to do it, and then the petitioners have appealed it, and the Supreme Court agreed to take the case. So, yeah, the morass of case law since District of Columbia versus Heller, very divergent. It's all over the place. It's almost impossible to follow, especially in areas like New York and California. Individuals actually say, I've actually heard individuals say that the Heller case actually creates the context where you're not actually allowed to defend yourself outside of your home, which there is kind of a twisting of interpretation that could mean that. So the Heller case specifically said you have a right to defend yourself in your own property, essentially. The Second Amendment in and of itself allows you to have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness through ownership of arms. Essentially, you can continue to maintain that. The whole situation in the legal brief behind this law in New York, it's basically just an attempt to get rid of the barrier. This it's such a subjugating barrier and so much time constraints, and it has led to a situation where people who need to defend themselves are not able to do so because of such a lengthy barrier. If a woman is being battered and feels like she is going to be attacked and could potentially lose her life because she can't defend herself, she has no recourse to get a license faster than probably 2 to 4 weeks. Well, if somebody's going to cause you great bodily harm and you know this, and it's going to happen in the next couple days, Are you going to worry about trying to file that legal case for 4 weeks out? It doesn't work. And the system is stacked against individuals' defense of themselves, especially in New York. And New York City specifically is the problem. You can go to northern New York and get a permit. You can get it pretty easily in, upstate New York. It's just New York City in and of itself is just this cesspool of restriction that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's definitely power they never want to let go of. Let's just say that. So I guess how many cases were there? Is it just that one, or was there like other cases
Well,
surrounding New York?
there's a lot of cases surrounding New York, but this one in specific is been taken up by the Supreme Court, which is good. The Supreme Court doesn't always take up gun cases, as we know, and this one in and of itself is kind of has potential to have greater ramifications across the nation because it really is. It's going against what the Democratic areas are using, specifically Heller and McDonald. So they're constantly saying that the lower courts are ignoring Heller and McDonald. And as precedent, you can't just ignore precedent. It exists for a reason. The Supreme Court has ruled on this already. And it's just questioning the whole legitimacy of authority in those areas to restrict said right, which in this case is the Second Amendment, and just continually infringing upon the rights. So, if you look at the actual brief from the case, it's like 30 pages long. There's a lot to unravel in it. They do create a lot of good arguments. So there's a minority of courts have followed Heller and use only text, history, and tradition, which is in those areas, the minority of courts. So specifically in states like Texas, Heller is gospel. Like it's a Supreme Court ruling, it's precedent, and it is the law of the land the way things are written. It's jurisprudence, it's law of the land. The highest court in the country has ruled this, but lower courts are not holding to it and following that precedent, stating other interpretations of law. So that's pretty much it. It's just kind of diluting the Second Amendment. And it's trying to prevent that. So I think in this case, it's probably the best state for the state of New York, or case for the state of New York. But we'll see if the case holds up on its merits. So
yeah, we'll see. So I guess there anything else you want to add to that, or
I think it's if you want to look it up, it's really easy to see it. You can literally just I believe if you just look, it's the state of New York. Yeah, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Kevin P. Bruin. You can see the case files, the petitions that are already put out, and how it's outlined. And it really does describe everything in and of itself in a very good manner. It's basically how they're going to attack the case and what their goals are to obtain from the case. I hope the Supreme Court takes it seriously and does rule again, which essentially would reaffirm Heller, which could be a big deal for places like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, to turning around, these gun laws that are so restrictive that are causing a lot of these violence issues in the area. So,
okay, sounds good. I guess let's go ahead and move on to the Hawaii v. Gun that case and the open carrying, I believe, in Hawaii.
Yeah, so I don't know a ton about Hawaii's case and the open carry. I know that a lot of it comes from an older lady who was trying to get her right to carry, and she's just kind of taking it up the level, up and up. It's basically the same thing as what we we're just talking about in New York. They're just trying to fight for their rights, the right to carry. Hawaii is an extremely dangerous place. A lot of people don't realize like everybody sees Hawaii on TV and it's like, oh, it's this beautiful, gorgeous place. But literally on the other side of that fence that they're shooting on, they're shooting. Like, it is extremely drug laden. The local population are among the highest methamphetamine users in the country, much less the world. Um, it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs in a lot of that state, and there's no real recourse for you to be able to protect yourself. Um, they have no open carry rights. They have no concealed carry rights. Basically, you can own a gun, but you can't do anything with it. I mean, I don't even believe in Hawaii there are open public ranges where you can take your gun to shoot.
I think there is.
I think there are private ranges, and they cannot charge you to shoot there. Like, there are a lot of private places that are open where you can go shoot, but they can't legally open a business. And I may be completely wrong on that. It's just kind of one thing that I remember is like, it was a weird thing where they had a law restricting the commercial, essentially a commercial range. And I like I said, I may be wrong on that, but Hawaii is one of those. It's damn near Japan, folks.
Yeah, you just stay away from the place,
Right. Once you get to California, I forget about the U.S.
Yeah, except Alaska though.
I still forget about Alaska too.
Yeah,
Alaska is very gun friendly. It is one of the most gun friendly states, but that's based on necessity.
yeah.
It's not necessity from gun violence either. Although Anchorage is not a very safe place. You would think with the military base there, it would be good, but the military base is actually one of the leaders and leading causes of problems in the Anchorage area.
Yeah, that makes sense because of all the sailors and everything in the bars.
A lot of drugs. It is.
Yeah.
Alaska is very heroin dependent. Interestingly, they have more people that are dishonorably discharged from the army in Alaska than anywhere else in the country because of drugs. So there's nothing else to do in Alaska. So
go ride a polar bear.
Yeah. Well, that's why you got to carry your pistols. 10 millimeter or higher, obviously, and 10 millimeter isn't good for bear hunting. So not best millimeter. There you go. Controversy for sure.
Yeah. I guess so where do you see like the case going? How long do you think it'll take for it to get to the Supreme Court?
I think it's going to drag out. Republican attorney generals urge SCOTUS to take the Hawaii carry case, but I don't see it actually happening. I think they're going to wait. I think the Supreme Court is known to only take up one major case at a time that kind of approach the same situation. Since they've already agreed to take up the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case, they probably won't take up the Hawaii case, unfortunately. And it's not because the case doesn't have merit. It's actually more along the lines of the case implications of New York could potentially help or change the situation for the Hawaii case. So
it's probably a good idea to do one at a time.
Well, that's just it. Is if they take on one that could have ramifications for all, that's good. It's a super similar situation to New York in the fact that it's a local jurisdictional government that is disagreeing with the Heller ruling that's disallowing the individual right to protection. And since they did already, like I said, take the New York case on, that New York case could potentially open up the Hawaii carry case in and of itself. So I don't see them taking it on just from a standpoint of their history and taking on more than one case that deals in the same realm at a time. But it is, it's the same situation essentially. And I do think that the New York case will carry over to Hawaii, but it'll take a case being elevated to this level again. So they're probably, if they don't take it, I don't see them flat out rejecting it. I see them tabling it. Essentially saying, let's put it to the side. We'll come back and reevaluate this in the next 6 months based on the ruling over here.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. I guess there anything else you would add to that, or should we move on to
That's
the?
all I know. I mean, like I said, the Hawaii case is interesting. Like, I haven't heard a lot about it. I know kind of where it started, and it's been a long time coming to get to this point. And that's why I'm kind of disappointed in saying that I don't think it'll go to the Supreme Court, but I understand why at the same time.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. I guess we go into the California ruling around assault weapons and all that. Let's move on to that next.
Yeah, I mean, California in and of itself is its own little cesspool of what is and isn't an assault rifle. Assault rifles don't exist. I will say that right now. There's no such thing. Here's a pen. It's an assault pen. I just used it to assault my camera. So that's my interpretation of it. But if I were to put a forward grip on that, it becomes an assault pen too. So I didn't even have to throw it. It's stupid. I hope that they win the case. I don't like the fact that the judge said, hey, we're going to put a hold on this case. So it's not going to go into effect until this date. So that way, here, you people, all that oppose this, now have the opportunity to come forward and negate what I did. So nobody can buy anything until this date. So here's all this time for you to actually go ahead and just negate it. I dislike that. I think it was foresight in knowing that they're going to go against it. They're going to knock it down, and you're still going to have fin grips and no forward grips and single bolt action ARs in California. So I think until they get rid of Gavin Newsom and turn
with Bruce Jenner.
Yeah. You know what? I don't necessarily oppose Bruce, Caitlyn, whatever.
Well, I wouldn't either if there was an actual, it would actually work, but it's not going to work.
Well,
so
the thing is interestingly enough, it might work because they're in a state that, number one, they value celebrities more than anybody. Number two, they're all about virtue signaling. So as long as you are the biggest, basically, subjugated group or lower caste group, you're held at a higher pedestal. And nobody actually knows politics in California. So the fact that Caitlyn Bruce Jenner is a conservative overall is probably a complete wash to most of the individuals out there. They don't even know that. They're under the assumption that they're just like the Kardashians. It's the same with, their mother. A vehement conservative. 100% believes in gun rights, believes in this, that, and everybody just thinks that because she's a Kardashian, she's a Kardashian. Well, I don't agree with any of their politics. And I don't agree necessarily with the decision for transitioning and all that stuff, but that's not my opinion either. It doesn't bug me. It doesn't affect me at all. It's not like she is coming to hit on me or anything like that. Whatever, do you?
Not yet.
Yeah. If you're into it, you're into it. Whatever. I don't care. I can say no as long as they can say no, I'm good. But that whole deal is my biggest problem with it is that Bruce Jenner escaped being prosecuted for involuntary manslaughter by transitioning to Caitlyn Jenner. And that is my biggest issue. The laws in California prevent you from dead naming an individual. And by doing that, his transition actually made it impossible for the state of California to pursue charges against Bruce Jenner because Bruce Jenner doesn't exist. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when he actually was involved in the vehicular manslaughter case, the case died the second he transitioned because the state of California legally cannot call Bruce Jenner to the stand.
Okay. I had to take a minute to think about that. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I knew this person was involved. It was involved in a car accident. I had no idea that they couldn't.
yeah.
Okay.
So they can't prosecute Caitlyn Jenner for a crime committed by Bruce Jenner because Bruce Jenner died when the transition took place. If you even Google when was Bruce Jenner born, Google will autocorrect it and say Caitlyn Jenner was born here. So Bruce Jenner does not exist, so he cannot be prosecuted for the crime.
What if, let's say, this happened in another state? Would they be able to be prosecuted, or is it just California's laws?
It's a local law in California that prevents it. It's similar to the laws that are dead naming, like where they can come after you for harassment or whatever, based on calling somebody out of their name. So, or misgendering. There are states and campuses, especially in colleges, if you call somebody outside of their gender or mispronounce their pronoun or whatever, they can prosecute you for it. It's a crime against that individual. And because it's a crime against a protected class of citizen, it becomes a hate crime modifier, which means it's full criminal. It's not just
better to stay away from them. Don't talk to them. Don't go anywhere near them.
Yeah, and they don't make it easy.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but just
right. It is. It's. I have no problem with any of them. I have no problem with anybody in who they are or what they want to be. I just have a problem with how hard
criminalizing it. I don't have a problem with that. I don't want anything to do with that. Just stay away from me.
I had a hard time with individuals making it so difficult to understand or even to kind of
criminalizing opposition. Not everyone agrees with that.
Right.
I'm sorry. I have to agree with the fact that, it is kind of they're not all up there.
Right.
So for people to oppose it and question their decisions, if you had to be criminalized, that's just,
yeah. And that's where a big problem I think is going to come in with him going for the governor. But circle back around to the gun law and everything like that in and of itself in California, it's
circle back.
Yeah, I know. I just circled back on it. The whole thing is ridiculous in and of itself, and they've been fighting so hard out there. I think it's great that Gun Owners of America is winning in court battles, is winning in certain situations, and we're going to see a lot more of this fighting over these rights in the coming months. I don't doubt that. Which is why I definitely recommend donating to people like Firearms Policy Coalition and Gun Owners of America. If you're donating to the NRA, please stop. They don't do anything.
Unless they're like paying for suits and jets and luxury houses.
Like everybody, I have no problem with the NRA. I don't. I think that it's great that they exist because everybody on the left attacks the NRA because they're prominent and they're these people. And nobody even sees GOA or FPC. So Gun Owners of America and the Firearms Policy Coalition are allowed free will to go and do what they need to do because the NRA is great cannon fodder. However, we need to redirect the funds that have been given to this group of people who don't do shit and push it towards individuals like Gun Owners of America and Firearms Policy Coalition who need those funds to continue winning in court.
I guess speaking of the NRA, what are your thoughts on like the whole thing with New York going after them and them trying to set up in Texas?
It is what it's going to be. New York is attempting to basically.
Well, they're doing what they're doing to Trump right now. It's the same exact tactic.
Trying to kill him, but the fact of the matter is they're not the biggest problem for their agenda and policy. Like I said, it's GOA and FPC, so they can go after the NRA all they want. As far as I'm concerned, the NRA has been dead for years. Wayne LaPierre has killed it. It is a shill of a company.
He showed up in Texas the other day. When they were saying constitutional carry, they brought him in there. It's like, what's he doing there?
Right. He only shows up when somebody else is winning and tries to claim it as his own, and it's ridiculous. And we all see through it. And that's the thing now. We all see through it. So,
yeah. Yeah, I guess how successful do you think New York would be shutting them down? Do you think there's success in that?
I don't think they can shut them down.
I don't think they're just
number one. They're not even in New York anymore. So could they push them out of New York? Sure, they're already gone.
They're in Virginia, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's questionable where they're actually set up now. I don't know. They tried going for um a tax exempt status in Texas. Um it's basically a corporate restructuring strategy um to try and prevent some things, but I don't believe they got it, so they're just going to kind of continue going wherever they can until they get it. So right now it's Virginia. But if you're in Virginia, don't donate to them. You got the Virginian Citizen Defense League. They do a hell of a lot more for you than the NRA ever will. So,
yeah, I guess what were your thoughts? I guess speaking of Virginia, we're jumping around, but that's I'm cool with that. What are your thoughts on, I guess, where Virginia is going? Obviously, they had the protests and everything. How successful do you think that's been? And where do you see Virginia going?
I think they've been relatively successful. I think they were kind of the hotbed of the whole Second Amendment sanctuary, which is good. It's been set up, and I think originally my thoughts were that Virginia was doing the Second Amendment sanctuary as kind of an FU to all these people who are doing immigration sanctuary cities. And it's kind of grown from there, and it's become its own thing. And I think it's become beyond just the tool for individuals to say, well, you can't say ours aren't valid if yours are. So originally, I think that was the whole point of it, was kind of to say, okay, your sanctuary cities are invalid because you say our sanctuary cities are invalid. So you can't have one without the other. And what it ended up being is people realized kind of the dilemma that they were stuck in, and now they can't say one is bad without saying theirs is bad. So it's become this spread thing all the way across the country where all these counties and everything are starting to claim Second Amendment sanctuaries. And it's good because it's pushed the power back to the sheriff. The sheriff is the law of the land. It has been, it's always been that way until the sheriff became an elected official. So, yes, they're still elected officials, but it's become more, the power is kind of pushing back to that sheriff. So, I think that's a good thing in some cases. I'm not one of those people who are like, all police are bad. I believe there are bad police. I believe there are bad police, but I believe there are bad people in general. And some of them are bound to be police. Some of them are going to be engineers. Some of them are going to be unemployed. It is what it is. So
yeah, I'm the same way.
Right. I think get to know your local police, get to know who they are, what they're all about.
Know your sheriff.
Exactly. And develop a relationship with them, because whatever gets shoved down the pipeline, if Johnny has to come confiscate your firearm because of some stupid law that gets passed, if he knows who you are, he's probably not coming to you first. You're going to have a little bit of warning. You're going to have a heads up, like, oh shit, time to go.
Time to get that shovel ready.
Yeah, well, I'm not burying shit. Every cop that knows me, all the sheriffs that know me, told them flat out, don't come to my house unless you want to go home. And they know what I mean. So
yeah,
I don't have to say it on YouTube because YouTube will flag it.
No. Yes, please don't do that. I've already been hit with that before. So,
I
guess where do you see Virginia going? Do you see do you see them electing a Republican governor, or do you think the state's gone?
I think they're in a similar situation as Wisconsin. So the bigger cities got together, they pushed it, they got the Democratic governor elected, and
he's black. Is he blackface or is he the one in the hood?
He's blackface.
Was he the one in the hood? Or is he blackface?
He's blackface.
Oh, is he blackface?
Yeah.
I know the candidate, he's brownface.
Yeah. So it was actually the interesting thing is this is not new. This has happened over the years. So he went blackface. His friend who was black went in a hood. Like that was like something that I do as a kid. Like it happened. My mom dressed me up as a hobo one year. I looked black for Halloween. What?
Hopefully you got no pictures of that.
Oh, I do, but I'm not around the office, and it's definitely not on the internet. So
yeah.
But that being said, like, it is what it is. Like, I think Virginia is in a good spot to bring themselves back. I think rural areas got lazy, figured there's no way that we're going to elect a blue governor to office And
I think they've already had a governor. I think it was just the legislature that went the other way.
yeah, however it went, but it was like, I think they just got lazy, and there's been a reignition of the red base across this nation over the last 2 years. And I think the landscape is going to be very different coming up. And that's why so many Democratic individuals are trying to change the way things are done. They're trying to change voting maps. They're trying to do everything in their power to ensure a blue vote. And I don't think it's going to happen no matter what they do, because they fail to realize how many people really do oppose what they want. And the majority of individuals, the other thing there is the people who are coming of voting age in this next voting cycle are not the same, liberal brought up individuals that I said it earlier. We have a generation of kids that are coming up now who are more conservative than ever before because of the authoritarian state that they've grown up in. It's the same as Cuba. It's the same as Venezuela. All these people are fighting back eventually because they're so restricted. I mean, we've held these kids back for so long. They're tired of it. So I think there's a misconception of the voting populace that are going to be out there in the next 2 to 4 years. So it'll be interesting to see as we transition forward, the younger kids coming into the picture of voting. And with Democrats out there screaming that they want to lower the voting age to 16, they're only going to help us. Because it really is. Look at Reddit. Look at 4chan. Those aren't 26 and 32-year-old people. Those are 15, 16-year-old kids. It's conservative across the board when you get to a certain age because they've been so restricted. And it's kind of that, the cycle of how it goes. Strong men create good times create weak men create bad times create strong men. We're in the bad times, we're creating strong men. Well, those strong men are about to come up. So
fascinating. I like that. It's very interesting. So I guess, what are your thoughts on Larry Elder? I don't know if you saw him. He was thinking about running for governor in California. What do you think his chances are versus Bruce?
I think anybody has an opportunity. I think it's very open. I don't think he has a big enough name. I think California is the show me state when it comes to, you need to be popular to get the vote. I think it's been proven that their governor who's currently sitting is not going to get reelected.
The French laundry guy.
Yeah, enough people have said.
You ever have that happen to you? You get caught up in the French laundry? That ever happened to you before?
Nope. But
was that you I saw in the French laundry?
No. Yeah. So, threw me off there for a second. It's all right. But yeah, I just don't think that.
Well, that was a restaurant they caught him in. That's what it is.
Yeah, I know. I'm just it took me a second to process. I'm like, but yeah, they're not going to reelect him. I don't think anybody's going to want to reelect him. I don't think they're going to even rerun him, to be completely honest, if he makes it to the next election cycle. Do
you think he's going to be able just to buy it? Because right now he's sending checks to everyone. Do you think he's going to make it?
He can send checks to whoever he wants, but if a recall election is pulled, he's going to need a hell of a lot more money than what he's sending. So
you actually, that's interesting. Most people say that they don't even think he's going to get, it won't even get to that point. He's just going to get reelected. So you actually have a different opinion on that.
So they already have the votes for a recall. So I don't necessarily think that he will be taken out. I think he may make it through a recall election. But the problem is the amount of money that it takes to make it through a recall election drains the ability to be reelected. And it's the same thing that happened to Scott Walker here in Wisconsin. He went through a recall election and then 2 years later had to run for governor. So all of the funds that he had fundraised to raise money toward his next gubernatorial run was dwindled by the recall election. That meant that Tony Evers came out and had a a higher standing of funds raised to promote him in the election, which put the individual behind. And we all know that elections right now are based on money. I could run for governor. Legally, I can run for governor. But if I don't have the money to promote myself, I'm never going to go anywhere.
Is Walker coming back, or is he not coming?
He won't be coming back. It'll be interesting to see who does run, but he has stated that he is not coming back. He's too polar. I think he understands that he's too polarizing of a figure to come back. He's not liked among 10 to 15% of the Republican base in the state anyways. So he's kind of...
Did he piss him off, or what happened?
He's a rhino. So...
Oh, okay. Goodbye.
Yeah. So that's the big thing. I mean, yes, he's Republican, but he's Republican in name only.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's other individuals that have a better opportunity to run in this state, especially with the base that currently is out here. So,
okay, yeah, especially with the way it's trending right now. I mean, it's becoming more and more Republican. Yeah. So
the political climate everywhere is becoming more Republican, but it's interesting because it's not becoming Republican; it's becoming conservative, which I think is the big denominator there. We need to stop eating our own, though. And we need to decide whether we're going to run a constitutional party or we're going to run a Republican party, because...
Well, that's not going to work, obviously.
People continue to run under the constitutional ticket, and they take votes away from the Republican that's running, or vice versa, and it ends up putting a bad taste in everybody's mouth, because we're splitting 70%. So it's 70-30 conservative Democrat, but it's 25 to 50 to 52. You know, it just, the way it breaks down, that total number didn't make sense, but you get what I'm saying. We're splitting that amongst three individuals, and all that third party does is take the votes away from the other individual who could have been elected. So,
okay. So I guess what other thoughts do you have to the, I guess, California ARAK thing? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think there's really much I can talk about, because it's kind of like everything there is in limbo right now. It could come out good, could come out bad. I have a feeling that it's going to come out bad, and it's going to require a statewide vote for governor to change a lot of things.
All right. So I guess you got to be, how much time do you have?
I got a couple minutes yet if you want to.
So I guess there's two more topics we'll power through, and then we'll go ahead and call it. So I guess this will be the Supreme Court's gun confiscation ruling. I guess what's going on in New York with the nuisance laws. So I guess if we just
talk about
those two things.
Ruling that warrantless seizures of firearms is unconstitutional and violates the Fourth Amendment. Yeah, 100% agree. I don't think that we needed a Supreme Court ruling to say that was unconstitutional. It's sad that we're to a state where litigiously we needed it. And this all goes back to, a seizure after a fight with a guy's wife, a domestic violence dispute, and they took his guns without there actually being any basically charges against him. Going into it, Caniglia was on his front porch when they arrived, and officers worked to convince him to go to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. Where they took his guns and everything like that. But the police report said that he seemed normal, was calm for the most part. He agreed to go, and the police allegedly promised not to confiscate his firearms. But as soon as he was gone, officers told his wife he had agreed to have his weapons confiscated. So my personal opinion on the whole thing is, I don't know why this went to the Supreme Court as needing a ruling for them to confiscate the firearms. This should have been brought into the court system as officers lying, basically a misrepresentation of reality by police officers to perform an act that's already been deemed unconstitutional against an individual and his property. So that's my opinion on it. I'm glad it went the way it did, because it does set up some precedent for other cases, but it was precedent that already existed essentially, because the Fourth Amendment is the Fourth Amendment. You have a right to be secure in your person and property. So there was no legal right for them to take the firearms away from the individual, and it's just one of those things, man. Rhode Island is slowly eroding as well, so it's that whole northeast area is kind of falling, which is really disturbing when you think about that's where America began, and America's falling there. So these people, it's New England, for crying out loud, essentially, and they're just
turning into England.
Yeah, so that's my kind of opinion on that. And then, going into, I think the hotter topic there is actually the nuisance laws and ghost gun ban in New York. First of all, ghost guns don't exist. I'll just say that. But essentially, the nuisance laws are being put in place as a way to allow for civilians to create civil lawsuits against gun companies when they're used in the commission of a crime. So it's worth noting, I don't believe this is signed yet. I don't believe it's actually signed yet.
I think it has been.
It may be now. The last thing that I heard about it, it was kind of
it has been.
Okay. Basically, it circumvents the federal laws that offer broad legal immunity for companies that technically don't have anything to do with it. So the whole legal lawsuit comes in if the gun was purchased illegally, which is kind of like the caveat here. So there's kind of a silver lining. The nuisance law only allows for civil litigation if the firearm was found to have been acquired illegally. Which means like a ghost gun technically in New York is illegal now because of this ghost gun ban. So if it's a ghost gun, the firearms manufacturer can be sued. Well, if it's a ghost gun, the manufacturer is the person who made it. So number one, good luck finding the person who made it, proving that person made it. And number two, if it's a gun that was, say, purchased illegally, I don't understand how it can go back to the manufacturer, because the manufacturer doesn't directly sell firearms to an individual. They sell firearms to a gun shop. A gun shop sells them to an individual. Essentially, there's a middleman between them. But somehow they're going to go after manufacturers. I think this is going to become a problem, though, because although they're attempting to use this for firearms, they're going to eventually see this transition over into, somebody was speeding or driving drunk in a vehicle. Now we can sue the car manufacturer. There's a whole lot more money protecting the auto manufacturers in Washington than there are the gun companies. So I'd really like to see how they're going to not go after other companies. So it's a very slippery slope. New York is very good with slippery slopes. It's what they do the best. But it's
just these lawyers.
They continue to push things through without actually thinking through everything. Technically, okay, so let's just spin the nuisance law on its head for a second. So an individual who went to a nursing home to be cared for.
See where you're going?
Yeah. So who's responsible for that person's death? Well, the individual who signed the piece of paper that pushed him there is responsible for it, right? Well, you're putting individual responsibility on somebody who's 3 times removed from a situation. And that's a problem. And it's the same thing like the manufacturers. And I guess maybe there's no parallel there and I'm just making one, but there's so many ins and outs of these laws, these unregistered laws, or how do you even say it? Unrealistic laws, where we can just let's see. The amendment carried by Assemblywoman Patricia Fay in the Assembly would clarify that the state's criminal nuisance law applies to the manufacture and sale of dangerous weapons. Okay, so they're clarifying that, providing a workaround as there is an exemption to federal law if a gun maker or dealer knowingly violates state law. So a gun maker or dealer knowingly violates state law. Seems like that may be the problem. But who's really violating state law if you give a gun to somebody legally and they use that gun in the commission of a crime? It's the person who committed the crime who's violating the law. So
I guess how big of a threat do you see this being? Like, I think like the way you explain it seems like it makes a lot more sense, because I heard a lot of like the fear mongering. Oh, my sky is falling, Chicken Little. I just seems like what you're saying makes more sense. So I guess,
you know, one of the things that it's saying is like a responsible gun company, which is pretty much all gun companies that exist, because they have to be responsible. They're held to such a high standard. It's impossible for there to be an irresponsible gun company, essentially, has nothing to worry about. Now, this
could be used against like what, the gun shops, FFLs.
Let's say there's an FFL who is manufacturing firearms and selling them to individuals, and those firearms being sold don't meet state law. So New York has some really interesting state laws, as well as California and all that, as far as what is legal, what isn't legal. And let's just say they forget to weld and stake the end device, so the muzzle device on a rifle. That is an illegal firearm. That company legally or illegally sold a firearm that does not comply to state law. If that gun is used in the commission of a crime, that person could potentially is liable to be sued. I think in general, laws like this are problematic because they create an opening for litigious action against companies that have nothing to do with situations. But I also think at the same time, these are just simple placating laws. It's similar to, man, I guess I don't even know what to say it's similar to, but it's essentially a law that doesn't do anything, but it makes somebody think it does, so they're happy.
So it's just like to get the headlines, just so she can run out there and. It's just like. Well, it's just like what you're saying. Like, this is the same attorney general right now who's going after Trump.
Right.
I don't see how that's going to happen. They're not going to put Trump in jail. Like, these people who they're going after, if what they're doing to Trump, they could do it to anybody. Nobody's going to run a business in New York. They're going to get the hell out of there. So it's
right.
So I think I think because these are the same people, so they sort of draw a parallel. A lot of what they're doing is just show.
Right.
So
I actually say the same thing is happening on the Republican side, and
absolutely.
Right, they're pushing all these different things like, oh, we're going to legalize this, or we're going to get rid of the NFA, we're going to get rid of the ATF. It's all just placating to a base. It's election politics.
Yeah, I don't consider myself a Republican, so
it's just election politics, and
and
people get all excited about it. It's like, oh, they introduced a bill that's going to ban the ATF. I'm like, yeah, they introduced it to a Democratic House.
Yeah,
is it going anywhere? No, it's the headline.
Yes, it's just a headline. When you Google their name, it can pop up.
So if Republicans really wanted to open up the things and get rid of the ATF and make all this stuff legal,
they don't want to do it.
They had plenty of time to do it when they had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president. And they didn't do it. Yeah,
it's just they didn't want to do it. Paul Ryan didn't want to do it. Just like with the whole thing with the wall,
bump stocks.
Yeah.
So as gun pro as they are now, they were so against them then. So
yeah, it was just like with the whole building the wall thing, to where it was actually Republicans who were against that. So
right, yeah. We don't want to talk about the fact that Barack and Hillary were all about it.
Oh, absolutely. I remember it's crazy how it's crazy how far the argument has gone. To where I remember it was border walls versus fencing. Now it's just open borders now. So
well, you want to open the borders up so that way you can ensure that they'll never have a red wave again. So
yeah,
that's why they won't. That's why they won't open the borders to Cuba.
Yep.
Because the Cubans will come over and vote Republican.
Yeah, it's obvious, so obvious. So, is there any other thoughts you want to add to that, or?
No, I think that pretty much covers that topic as far as right now. Like I said, it's until it's put into practice, it's hard to see how damaging it's going to be.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of wording in there that kind of protects pretty much the majority of manufacturers as it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know companies like Palmetto State Armory going out of their way to sell guns to felons.
Yeah, it's in New York. I mean,
right.
I don't know. It's just, we'll see. I mean, these lawyers and everything, God only knows. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a buddy of mine who lives in New Zealand. He's actually becoming a lawyer, and it's like the legal field there is like completely different. Like I was talking with him about it. He was saying like they can't go around suing people like the way they do here.
Yeah,
so
we are very civilly litigious in this country. There has to be a lot of proof for you to sue somebody in other countries, and if you sue somebody without that proof, the countersuit from an individual is so much more damaging than it is here. Like somebody brings suit against me for something and I want to countersue them. It's like fighting tooth and nail to countersue.
Oh yeah.
The country, if you sue somebody and you don't have the backing on it, a countersuit is lickety split. You're getting it. Like,
yeah,
it's a good thing because it makes it so people don't want to sue. So.
All right, I guess we can go ahead and end it here. I guess we just stick around. I guess we'll say our final goodbyes, but we'll go and end it there. Hopefully you guys liked what you saw. If you guys want to get in contact with Tactical Pineapple, he's on YouTube, and we'll have to do more of these. Whenever there's something popping up, we'll do another video. So thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.